Hi, and welcome to another episode of Driven by Doing. Today, we have Rahul Rana from New Jersey. Rahul, welcome to the show Driven by Doing.
Thank you for having me.
So, Rahul, you had such an amazing background and such a career so far. Like you worked for a lot of different companies doing internships, and you just recently launched your book,
Yeah.
Making Moonshots. So we are going to definitely learn more about your story
hmm
and your book and why you have written it and how you wanted to inspire others and what are the key insights that you wanted to share with people with your book. So let's begin with your story. So where are you originally from and where are you today? And let's get started from there.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So, basically, my journey starts as a kid. My entire life, my dad has worked at Bell Labs, right? So, anyone in tech and sort of science world, I'm sure they know Bell Labs are very innovative. All the breakthrough, inventions and innovations that sort of came out of the labs in the past century. So, as a kid, I'd go to all the labs, right? I'd see all the the Nobel prizes and their inventions and stuff. They have a museum and everything, all the labs, and just become super obsessed with all these really science sort of technology or deep tech and sort of R&D heavy sort of projects and um, you know super excited about all those things early on. And then funny enough, I got to high school and I totally blocked off all my curiosity for science and tech. I fell into the business crowd, right, the finance crowd. Started developing strengths and passion for that. But then I got to college and I realized, like, I don't know if I want to just do pure finance, right? I really do want to doing something that I actually am truly passionate about. And I thought about it and I realized, like, all right, like what I grew up on, right, science, tech, and whatnot. If I could sort of combine that with finance, I think that would be this perfect sort of career path. And so through my research and everything, and I started getting involved in stuff, and I just realized, like, deep tech venture capital and deep tech startups and whatnot, entrepreneurship, like that was exactly what I want to be in, right? These are the companies that are really not only advancing science and technology, but also humanity itself, right? They're solving big bold problems that some of the most grand challenges that we face as a species, right? And, everything from poverty to food scarcity to going in space and curing cancer and everything in between. So again, super sort of excited to solve all these things. And I realized, like, all right, like, how do I get started on this, right? It's this cool goal that I have, but I really want to do something like literal, something tangible about it. I really want to put my passion into action, right? Into put my energy channel into something that's productive. And I thought about it. I wasn't ready to start a company. Not ready to get into the venture capital industry. So I was like, all right, like the next best thing I could do, but also like one of the boldest things I could do in the moment is to write a book. So sort of my second semester of my freshman year of college. I'm currently a sophomore, so second year, but my first year in college, I just decided to write this book. And originally it was by no means was I an expert on deep tech and moonshots and whatever it may be, but I use this book as a way to first become an expert and then also to really improve my writing craft. And I sort of had this dual mandate, right? Again, become an expert, write a really good book in terms of quality. And so for all of 2020, basically, I started in January 2020, so exactly a year ago. I was, writing this book. Took advantage of the time being at home because of COVID. For the last 10 months, I was at home. Took advantage of all the time I had there. Right, 13, 14, 15-hour days, just putting tons and tons of research into it. Right,
I think
really
there's a
improve.
lot of experience that you had right
Mhm.
from the childhood, which definitely have
Yeah,
helped
yeah,
you to get to writing a book, right? So
yeah,
you
yeah,
covered like, hey, like your dad is have worked at Bell Labs, which definitely
yeah,
kind of like gave you that early exposure to
mhm,
really see things that most people might not have access to at that early stage, right?
yeah,
And then you are curious and you wanted to learn more and see what technology can actually help people with. And when you get to college, you took advantage of getting into business side of things, learning about business, which again
yeah,
seems like you got more curious. And then you
mhm,
suddenly coming to college, you wanted to have that different skill set to add on top of what you already have in high school, right?
yeah,
And now
mhm,
you're already doing it. While you're doing it, you also mentioned that you wanted to become an expert in this area, right? There are a
yeah,
lot of things that you covered which actually pointed it to you in this direction. For a lot of students who are still in college might be
mhm,
wondering like, hey, like what is the thing that I wanted to do? And most people even out of graduating might not know, right? Do you think like all this experience like really helped you to kind of focus on the technology piece of it, the business aspect of it, and you also mentioned like you started a company as well. So tell us a little bit more about like how this whole experience played a role in writing your own book to really learn as well as share with others what you're learning.
Yeah, yeah, of course. To clarify, I didn't start a company. I worked at a bunch of them. I basically what I was saying is like I was by no means was an expert before writing the book, and sort of I wrote the book to become an expert, and hopefully I can now found as many sort of moonshot companies as possible. So, yeah, no, yeah, to your point, it was a lot of lot of different things that sort of helped me get to the position I was in. So obviously to start, as you mentioned, right, my dad working at Bell Labs, all this influence sort of early on had sort of that background. High school, I learned all things business or startups and finance and whatever, maybe all things non-technical. And then actually, so I worked at two companies so far. So actually, in terms of all my work experience, so I worked at my congressman, my local representative. I worked for him in terms of public policy and everything. I worked at an AI startup. I worked at a nanotech startup. The nanotech one I would consider to be a moonshot company. And I also worked at two different venture capital firms, and then now I'm at my third at Lux Capital.
Mm.
So basically, all these different things, right? You have a little bit of public policy, right? A little of startups and business, and you have some startup sort of science heavy nanotech and quantum science and that whole thing and AI as well. Also, I had a lot of experience with in regards to the things I was studying at school, right? So I'm a finance major and also studying astrophysics. So again, all these different things. It just sort of the culmination of all of them led to my book. But honestly, the most sort of impactful thing in terms of preparing, right, experience that sort of led me to this thing was honestly just doing my own research, right? I'd read hours upon hours, just scouring the internet, right, looking at all these really cool startups, right? Moonshot companies are the ones that are really, really doing some good in the world. I was really wondering, like, how can we make more of these people? How can we make more of these founders? How can we inspire more people to solve these really big things and do these really bold things that again progress science, technology, and humanity itself. So
For
yeah, it
many
is all these
people,
things. So yeah.
for many people who are thinking about writing a book, first of all, the
Mm-hmm.
first obstacle or the thing that comes to my mind is like, hey, am I good enough? am i
Yeah.
am I good enough? The next one
Yeah.
is, hey, am
Mm-hmm.
I really an expert in this area? But you took the other approach, hey, like, let me become an expert by
Yes.
actually researching in this area.
Mm-hmm.
And walk us through that process, like what went
Yeah.
through the whole year to actually learn about this area and kind
Mm-hmm.
of like explore, like how did you explore this area more?
Yeah.
What kind of people that you had interactions with or talked with, and especially in the venture capital area, so that people listening to this can understand the process that you went through to write this book.
Yeah, of course. So so there's a couple things. First, probably the most sort of impactful things in terms of the research I did and getting stories was I did so many interviews. So I think I did around like 90 to 100 interviews of all sorts of deep tech VCs, lots of deep tech founders, operators, people in academia, and some in government as well. So it was really really cool getting all these diverse perspectives. But what allowed me to do is that like I took all these interviews and asked them very very broad questions and also really specific ones, right? All these different things. I was very intentional about it, and it really I really developed the structure of my book based on all the conversations I had, as well as all the content that I read and took in, and all the profiles of said companies and said founders, and taking out all that in, I actually let the outline of my book just form itself. Right, I saw what are the sort of the recurring ideas I see across all these different mediums of information, and once I sort of had this loose structure, I was like, okay, like now I know like like what sort of the underlying similarities, right? What works for most people, what has a lot of evidence of working in terms of making moonshot companies, right? That the title of my book, obviously, right? Yeah, and in terms of my book, right? I started with mindset and sort of philosophies, right? Intangible things like about the person who starts a moonshot company, and then the strategy and the ecosystem, right? The more tangible things. And so all these different pieces of content that I would read and all these different interviews, like they all everyone had that little like sprinkles of knowledge and stories across all those four different categories. And I did extra research, right? Just like formatted it all together, made it sound good, right? I obviously focused on my writing craft, yeah, at the end of the day, like that's how I sort of went about the research process. It was, if I were to recommend anything, it would be drastically improve and be really intentional with the content intake, right? Following the right people on social media, right? Reading the right blogs, right? Reading the right articles, reading again right resources, and as well as talking to the right people, right? Surrounding yourself with people who are constantly thinking about this, right? Being able to bounce ideas, having all these experiences, and at the end of the day, the culmination of all that can lead to something really good.
Mm. So if I ask you, what is the biggest aha moment that you had while talking to all these people? Hey, like
Yeah.
I was thinking this way, but I saw this new thing
Mhm.
across all the different people that I talked to. Are there any like incidents like that during your research?
Yeah, I would say the biggest sort of aha moment was, so a lot of the people, right, among all sort of 90 to 100 of people I spoke to, one thing I always asked was, of the people that they know who have founded moonshot companies, or if they were founders, like in regards to them or their team or whoever it may be, I always made it a point to ask, what are some of the qualities that they see, right, the mindsets or the philosophies that I mentioned before. And what I realized, like, after so many interviews, everyone was saying the same things. Everyone was saying, right, they're they're bold, they're optimistic, but they're a little bit pessimistic, right? They're intellectually honest with themselves, right? They're sort of hyper fluent, right? They have this relentless curiosity, right? They're again bold, ambitious, they dream big, all these different, radically create, I call it radical creativity. All these different aspects of their mindset and everything. And I realized, like, okay, like, a lot of these people have the same qualities. And again, like I realized, like, there's no other sort of content out there that really sort of profiled all these founders. And there's no, one sort of, piece of literature that defined, what these founders are like, right? How can someone actually develop those qualities and so forth? So again, I just ran with that, right? That's why I wrote my book, right? I took that, idea, put my own spin on it, and I put, wrote all the stories and everything, and all the examples and stuff. And, I sort of, profiled what a moonshot founder is in regards to what I've seen in terms of research and whatnot, and in real life. And that was honestly, like, yeah, like, that was like the biggest thing, because what I realized is just, like, everyone was saying the same things over and over again, but there was no, like, one sort of central location, or one central medium that actually said that out loud, and in public, and was published or whatever. So again, I just wanted to be the one to do that.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that insight,
Mhm.
Rahul. And for entrepreneurs who are listening to this, right? Like a lot of times when you're thinking about, first of all, building a company is
Mhm.
the most difficult thing.
Yeah.
Now we are talking about not just building about any company,
Mhm.
but making moonshots, right?
Yeah.
Like there is a lot of difference between just building a company and thinking like really, really big,
Yeah.
right? What would you tell entrepreneurs who are even just slightly thinking about, hey, like I wanted to build something big and to really make a change or make a difference in the world, right? What would you tell people who had the just slightest idea to make a difference in the world?
Mhm.
What are the steps that they need to take to keep on dreaming big? Because yes, we might have that fire like for a day or a month or a year, but
Yeah.
to keep that going for several years, because
Yeah.
it is going to take a lot more time
Mhm.
than we actually think. That is
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. To be able to create that mindset, like we need to believe in the idea in us so
Mhm.
much, right?
Yeah.
Like what do you tell entrepreneurs who are listening to this, who are
Mhm.
dreaming big and wanting to make those moonshots?
Yeah, of course, of course. So, you know, first thing I would say to them is, first of all, we need more people like them, right? I really do appreciate that, someone's, stepping up to pursue such a company and whatnot. So first, I'd say that. But, most importantly, what I would say is, like, all right, like, it's a long journey, right? You have to be thinking, 10, 15, 20 years in advance, right? That's how long into the future that these founders are thinking of. And, basically what how I think about it is just like, all right, like, they have to have this bold, this huge vision in terms of the long-term goals, but every single short-term and medium-term goal should be actually very realistic. In fact, it should be incredibly realistic, and not only that, it should be extremely clear, right? They should have this insane level of clarity in terms of their vision, that they know what they got to do, right? They know how they're going to get to it, right? They take all these steps, and they really take advantage of compounding, right? Compounding over time, whether it's knowledge, experience, right? Working with a good team, whatever it may be, just like take advantage of compounding and exponential progress. And once you get on that curve, you'll see by 5, 10 years time, you will be on your way to actually making the moonshot, right? Like the thing that you thought was just so seemingly impossible, right? The really, really lofty goal that 5, 10 years ago you thought was impossible. So that's one thing I would say is just like having that extreme clarity of vision, as well as again keeping yourself motivated, right? Like and just like taking advantage of time scale, right? Compounding, right? Exponential progress, but all these different terms, they all mean the same thing at the end of the day, right? Just like taking advantage and doing things, just like that. And again, with time, it'll come. And again, and that's obviously the basis of everything. Obviously, you got to do all the actual technical and operational stuff, right, in terms of the research and the commercialization process. But nonetheless, like to get started, that's what I would say, right? Once they could figure that out, then they can get started, right? Hire the right team, right? Have this sort of this amazing sort of culture in which it's okay to fail, right? It's okay to make mistakes, but even that, even considering that, like you're still on your way to making a moonshot. And again, getting comfortable with uncertainty and all these different qualities and aspects of getting even started, right? This is even prior to actually running the company. All these different things, you have to make all these considerations, right? What are the second order effects of this company and the idea? So, like what happens if a million people use this product, or a million people use this technology or science? Or again, like what happens to people's livelihoods? Who is left out in terms of when society makes said advancement or progress, or whatever it may be. Again, being extremely wise and extremely intentional about all the things that you do going forward. Like that's how you get started in terms of making moonshot. And then obviously after that, right, all the business stuff, all the science stuff, all technologies, like that all comes. And again, I'm not one to speak on how to actually start a startup, but in terms of getting ready for that process, that's one thing that I hope to convey in my book.
So one thing that you stressed a lot just by talking about making moonshots is the mindset, and
Yeah.
just surrounding yourself with those positive people and the positive,
Yeah.
because it is very hard to
Mhm.
have those kind of goals for a long period of time, and
Mhm.
people give up. Like, I mean, like, we know what percentage of startups actually make it up to like 5 years,
Yeah.
and a lot of times there are a lot of questions and struggles, and just creating that team takes a lot of time and effort. And
Mhm.
failing is something that we need to get accustomed to, because if we fail, okay, the next day, every day is a great opportunity to start over again. To
Yep.
keep going and keep doing it for a long period of time
Mhm.
takes a lot of strong mindset, right? So
Mhm.
one thing that
Yeah.
I kind of learned from my own experience talking with a lot of entrepreneurs, Rahul, it's that mindset, what they would be creating while working on this big idea or the big dream,
Mhm.
is not just going to help them just build this company, but even though, let's imagine students who are listening to this and thinking of, hey, like it's kind of very difficult from a situation where I am in, but the mindset they would be able to create by just thinking through and going through that process is actually
Mhm.
going to help them, even if they actually go and work for an employer.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit more about creating that mindset.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's so many things you could do. One thing I say is that, like, there's no concrete sort of framework or mindset that oh, all moonshot founders have to have this or whatever. Again, everyone's different. What works for some won't work for all. But nonetheless, some of the the core sort of similarities that I've seen, at least, right, and among most founders. I mean, there's so many things, right? Um, like I mentioned, right? Again, the obvious ones, right? Being ambitious, being bold, dreaming big, all those stuff, but also, being, very, very wise, right? Being very, childish, but also very, rooted and grounded in reality, right? Having these differing sort of, almost opposing sort of qualities and finding harmony in between them, right? What I mean by that is that, right? Being really, really optimistic, but also pessimistic, right? Being really, really passionate, but also dispassionate, being extremely, extremely, childish, right? Like, thinking, everything's fantasy, but also being, again, rooted in reality, right? What works, what doesn't, right? Being, super liberal with your time and your energy and everything, but also being very conservative with it. And, all these differing aspects. I realize a lot of these moonshot founders, they have these seemingly opposing qualities to themselves. And I was just wondering, why is that? But again, I just think that is where their creativity sort of, strikes, right? That's where they really, set themselves apart from others. So, it's all about, you know, in terms of how do you get that mindset, right? I mean, there's so many things, right? Again, improving your content intake, right? Surrounding yourself with like-minded people and people who are trying to solve these big problems, and again, whatever it may be, just like surround yourself with the right people, right? Obviously, the famous quote says, you're the average of the 5 people you spend most time with, right? Same sort of concept, right? Um, you know, and counter to that, actually, purposely surrounding yourself with people who have different viewpoints, and having different perspectives, and allowing people to bounce those off and each other, and all the sort of cross collaboration that comes with that. I mean, again, I can go on and on. There's just so many different things I could say. At the end of the day, it's just putting yourself in the right sort of environment, right? Having the right attitude, having the right environment, and sort of having those right and sort of incentives, right, to get yourself sort of intrinsically motivated to go on this really really tough project. So once you have all those things, right, then I think this the sort of the mindset and everything, that's what really sort of solidifies it, and then hopefully you can take it forward 5-10 years in advance. So yeah.
And you also touched upon the importance of storytelling, right? Like even for
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, like let's talk
Hmm.
about storytelling. And like, because there's a lot of people involved, it's not just the
Hmm.
founder, right? Like in order to
Yeah.
really put their vision and speak their mind to other people, they need storytelling. Like
Hmm.
how important it
Yeah.
is for people to make those moonshots, the storytelling piece of it.
Yeah, of course. So for this, there's a couple stories that I touch on, right? I give you the most obvious sort of example, right? The Apollo missions, right? The first moonshot, right? The project where the term moonshot actually was popular, right? Going to the moon in the 60s, right? So what made the Apollo missions, so incredibly, what made it actually happen, right? And how impactful it was, and how big it was. It's just because JFK, right? President John F. Kennedy, like he really mobilized the general public, right? He mobilized the government and scientists and the general public, and the people with capital, and everyone, just to support his mission, right? Support his mission to go to the moon, right? NASA's and America's sort of mission to go to the moon, and to do this for science, right, for technology and so forth. And again, the way he did that, right, was just storytelling, right? He had to mobilize an entire sort of crowd of people, right? He had to evangelize, going to the moon and whatnot, whatever it may be. So again, that's how these sort of this mega scale sort of projects happen, right? You do need all this, all this sort of attention and resources and support from government, right, education, private funding, right, VC, right, universities, startups, people themselves, or the general public, experts. Like you need everyone, right? And so the way to do that, right, storytelling, right? Storytelling not only brings you know obviously your capital or whatever you need, but it also brings talent, right? You need talent. You need actually people to help you sort of realize this mission, right? You need support, right? In terms of maybe you have there's other companies that could be your customers, right? Obviously these are companies at the end of the day, they need to sell a product or they have to make revenue, right? So whether even getting customers, right, or having serving other people or whatever it may be, just like whatever, any of the parties that are sort of impacted by whatever thing you want to do, like you got to convince them to actually give up their time, right, give up their money or whatever it may be to support your cause. And again, at the end of the day, like that's how people storytell. And one sort of interesting story is that uh maybe if you don't, but Theranos, right? The Theranos, the big biotech fraud that happened maybe 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, Elizabeth Holmes, her entire life, honestly, she was just this master storyteller. I
Mm.
mean, she was able to get hundreds of millions in funding and all these employees and media attention and everything. She became a celebrity, and it was all a fraud, right? It was all fake. But nonetheless, she got that all through storytelling, where she convinced everyone. She inspired them. She was on this major TED Talks and all these big time sort of media and public sort of events and whatever it may be. Again, she mobilized the crowd, right? She got people on her side. She got capital to come. She got talent to come. She got all this attention. And at the end of the day, like she did all that without having an actual product, right? Without actually making tangible sort of progress. And again, obviously it was a fraud in the end, but nonetheless, like she was a master storyteller, and that's how she got that position.
Mm. Thanks for sharing those two stories. Very impactful. Like you took the example of JFK and like
Mhm.
mobilizing the whole team, and also on
Yeah,
the other side the Tyrannus. Like we have all
yeah,
seen like how these two stories differentiate
mhm.
themselves. Like with the storytelling, like you either can
Yeah,
go in a positive way and you can also misuse it sometimes,
yeah.
right? So there is always this balance that like
Mhm.
you always need to pick and choose. And thanks for sharing those two great stories, Rahul.
Mhm.
And now coming back to your story, now you're still in, so you're going to the business school at Rutgers Business
Mhm.
School, and now you're
Yeah.
taking finance and astrophysics. And where do you see yourself next after business school? What do you want to do next?
Yeah, of course. So obviously I do want to finish my I have two or more years left in my undergrad. So I want to just get, my undergraduate degree. But after that, or even in the process of getting there, and also after, like, I definitely want to be in the deep tech venture capital space. I absolutely love it. It's something I'm super passionate about. Again, it's exactly what, one of the main topics of my book. So I want to stay in the deep tech space, right? Not only, but there's a specific sort of type of, firm or, group of people I want to work with. I really want to work with people who not only venture invest, but also venture build, right? A firm that really, incubates companies in-house and also invests in them, right? And also supports them and whatever it may be. So, just the way I think about it is just like, why solve one problem when you could solve multiple ones, right? I just want to, make all these moonshots, right? Solve all these big problems, right? So many out there. I mean, like, again, everyone knows there's so many problems to be solved in the world. Like, we just need the people to do so. So again, that's how I think about it, right? I just want to be in a position where I could, again, not only invest in them, but also build them and build multiple ones. And so, whether that, where that takes me, I'm not sure, right? If it's, I don't know, some people said, some people told me to start a research park, right? Another, like, Bell Labs or Xerox Park type thing. Some people were telling me to start a venture capital firm. Some people said, just like found a company myself. Like, I'm not opposed to all, like, I'm completely, I'm super excited to do all those three things. So I don't know where my life will take me. Like, I'll see when, when I graduate and what happens. But, in the meantime, yeah, I just, again, I want to fulfill my life's goal, right? Of making multiple moonshots. So yeah.
That's awesome. And thanks for sharing that vision. And you also work with a lot of venture capital firms. Like
Yeah.
let's talk about your experience working already with these venture capital firms, and
Mhm.
maybe like some insights around what they are looking for when startups come
Yeah.
to venture capital firms in order to, like,
Mhm.
share their vision. Like, tell us a little bit more about the venture capital firms and how they work, especially startups who are
Mhm.
looking for raising capital.
Yeah, of course. So, for a lot of the sort of the startups that have these bold visions and everything, obviously, they need to get funding to get started and, to for the operations and everything. So, right, that's why they come to the VC firm. So, well, I mean, I'm at Lux Capital, right? They are a deep tech, one of the best deep tech VC firms in the world. So it's really, really cool, right? I got the opportunity because of my book. Actually, I interviewed the managing partner. He ended up hiring me, so it's really cool. Absolute dream job, and it lives up to all my expectations. It's super cool. Learning, so much stuff. All these, science heavy, startups. They come to me, or they pitch me, like, I help them, whatever it may be, right? So um it's just been an amazing thing. And, one thing I like to say is that, like, there's a few VC firms out there that I really do believe are really, again, changing the scope of science, technology, and, again, humanity itself, right? I always say those three things. But there's a lot of VC firms out there. Again, they take money from, from sort of, rich institutions, right? They make the rich richer. It's just like, they're investing in things that are just, incremental progress that don't really do any, net positive on society. Maybe they're a great business, right? Maybe that, they make revenue and whatever it may be, but, like, I really want to be investing and building and helping and working with the startups that are actually solving, some of the hardest problems in the world, right? Again, I could name so many of them, right? Everything from poverty, homelessness, food, and whatever it may be, to, climate change, to, I mean, going to space and all things in the ocean, and, robotics and AI and all these different things, right? All these sort of frontier technologies and sciences. I really do believe, like, the firms that really focus on the companies that actually solve these big problems, these most, these very pressing problems, like, those are the VC firms that will make it in the future. Right? Those are the ones that are going to be really, really successful going forward. I do believe that, sort of the age of these, note-taking apps, right? These sort of, very sort of incremental companies, like, I do think it's getting heavy commoditized, and it's sort of going to be a thing of the past. Like, now going forward, right? We need, companies that actually, again, solve big problems, right? Have this solid societal impact and also make money, right? Things that actually, help individual people, right? Education or mentorship, whatever it may be, just like all these different things. That's what I want to be investing in. I think that's where venture is going. So, considering that, right? And to your next question, what can, startups do to get VC funding? I'll say one thing, like, the most important thing in terms of, getting funding is just the people that are running these companies, right? The founders. Like, the team itself is so incredibly important, right? You could have a bad idea, but if you have a good team, like, they could sell that product, right? It doesn't go vice versa, though. That said, and again, when you're trying to get venture funding, it's again, it's inherently super early stage, right? You're, maybe you just started your company, maybe you have, very few employees. Some of the times you don't even have revenue, you don't have a product at the end of the day. But again, you're trying to raise this money so you can sort of, make progress in your business or whatever it may be. So the best sort of indicator if you will make money, right? And the best indicator for VCs is just the team, right? Do they have that synergy, right? Are they productive, right? Are they, the only people in the world that can solve this problem and so make this product and differentiate themselves and really gain market share and wedge their way into whatever success that they need to be. Like most of venture capital, they're betting on the founders, and that's it. And that's the most important thing in terms of if a startup wants funding, like they should really consider that.
Mm. Thanks for sharing, how venture capital looks at the whole startup ecosystem. And
Mhm.
now, again, going back to your story, like you also mentioned a lot of times about mentoring, right? Like,
Yeah.
talk about like how mentorship helped you to kind
Mhm.
of like lay it all together, whatever you have achieved so far.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the first sort of the biggest sort of mentor I had was my parents, right? And specifically my dad. Again, Bell Labs and everything, right? So he and my mom got me started on all things, entrepreneurship and science, tech, and everything. But I would say, in terms of some of the really most impactful mentors. So I had one mentor, and when I think about this, I could think of two to three people. So my first mentor, right? My he was actually my piano teacher back in middle school and high school. He all right, so for reference, I played piano internationally, right? A couple times in Carnegie Hall. I went to Canada, Germany, Belgium. We were invited all over the world, and um, my piano teacher, not only did he trained me and he taught me to become this really I was proud of the sort of the skills I had and the progress I made. So he made me this pianist, but also he really made me a good person, right? He taught me about actually pursuing your passions, right? He taught me about about happiness and success and all these life skills that honestly I never would have known without him. And again, all his mentorship, all his sort of his wise sort of advice, it was truly life changing, right? So that was one thing, right? And he was really the one who brought me around the world, literally around the world to play piano. So I know all the experiences I had, all the the good times, right? All the times I was working really hard, and my work ethic honestly started with piano, and again it was all attributed to him. My second mentor was the mentor who brought me on the book process, right? Obviously, incredibly impactful to my life. You know, it was my freshman year, my first year of college, and I met this my mentor on LinkedIn, actually, of all places. And I struck up a conversation with him, and he just said, hey, like he likes to mentor people, right, in writing books, right? He sets them up with the publisher, gets them started on the process. And I was like, hey, like, and obviously he does it for professionals, right, experts and whatever it may be. So I asked him, like, hey, like, I absolutely love deep tech, I love moonshots, like, can you take a chance on me? Just take a chance on me. Like, I will, I will sort of, return the favor. Like, I will, make the most of it. He, thank God that he did it. And, the rest is history, right? I wrote my book, right? It's really proud of the book and everything. And now I'm here, right? I'm talking to you. So again, he was the one who really brought me along on the book process, right? Taught me everything that there is, set me up with the right people, right? And again, the rest is history. So those are probably the two biggest mentors in my life. Obviously, right where I work at Lux Capital. All the people at Lux Capital, they're great. They teach me so much. All the people I meet on like Twitter and stuff, like all these people older than me, like they teach me everything. So again, I have so many different mentors, but I would say in terms of like the maybe the two or three biggest ones is obviously my parents, but then also my piano teacher and the guy who brought me along in the book process.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing about your mentors and how they made an impact in your life and
Mhm.
career as well. And what are your favorite books that you read most of the time, Rahul?
Yeah, of course. So my absolute favorite book, I actually have it right next to me. It's called Letting Go.
Yeah.
It's called Letting Go by Richard Dawkins. Just an amazing book. Basically, it's again, it's literally about letting go, your emotions, right? All whatever emotion you're feeling, right? In terms of negative emotions, like it's just the process and the pathway to actually surrendering those and whatnot. And I can't tell you, there's so many times just like I felt some emotion, right? I was angry, I was sad, or whatever it may be, and I read this book and it just helped. It just like it literally like it just like helped right in the moment, just reading the literal words. And especially on the book writing process, right? I was so burnt out, right? It was a hard journey. And again, I just read that book and it got me, put my mind right. I collected myself and I continued to write. So it's just one of those books that is really practical advice and really clear advice to actually have a clear mind and again control your emotions and whatnot. So yeah.
That's amazing. Letting go.
Mhm.
So definitely
Letting go, yeah. Mhm.
looking forward to learning more about that book as well.
Mhm.
And thank you so much for being on the show. And are there any other final thoughts for our audience?
Yeah, I mean, look, let's go make some moonshots, right? Like I want everyone to to pursue these bold companies, right? Really solve all the whatever problems that we have in the world. Like to anyone in the audience, like if they want to pursue one, if they need help, like feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to help everyone. It out of the goodness of my heart. Like I just want to help as many people as possible. Pursue these companies, right? Or maybe they want to get connected to a company, existing company. By all means, like I'll help them as much as possible. So yeah, that's what I would say, right? Obviously, also read my book. Hope everyone enjoys my book. But yeah, if I were to say anything, it's just like let's go make some moonshots. Like I really want to see a lot of people do that, and hopefully I could have inspired them to do so.
Absolutely. I'm sure like a lot of people are going to get a lot of great insights from your
Hmm.
Making Moonshots. And I'm
Yeah,
sure you're going to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs. That's what exactly you are trying to do to really
yeah.
big and make some moonshots. Thanks
Hmm.
again for being onto the show. I'm going to definitely put all your links in the
Hmm.
description to kind of have access to those books and resources that you talked about. And
Hmm.
all the very best to you, and this is going to be just your first book. There are a lot of books that we are
Yeah.
definitely forward to having in the future
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
really inspire people and make a difference in this world. Thanks again, Rahul.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.